Welcome to the podcast that brings you high voltage, intriguing information, as well as electrifying conversation on all topics, current, past, and yet to be. This is Phase to Phase.
The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence.
I've been having these weird thoughts lately.
Without change, something sleeps inside us and seldom awakens.
Here are your hosts, Marcus and Drew.
What are we talking
But no, yeah, we're going to be talking about whistleblowers today. Yeah, superstars of the subversive corners of the digital frontier, let's say.
And for more information, Too Short has a song on this.
Oh,
Blow the Whistle.
Blow the Whistle. Fuck you. That took me half a second. That was a terrible, terrible song. The fact that you know who sings that song, that's what fucking gets me concerned, bro.
Hey man, strap yourself in.
Blow the Whistle.
I'm gonna lace this thing up with terrible jokes.
Oh, God, Too Short. Where's the rest of you? Yeah, we're going to be talking about a couple of heavy hitters that you may or may not, you should be aware of all these people. They're goddamn historic at this point.
They sacrifice themselves for your sins.
Yes, no kidding, right? They're like the digital Jesus of today's world. So those are going to be four people that we're going to be talking about today. That's William Binney, Bradly Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, and of course, Edward Snowden.
Oh, yeah.
So before we begin, I do as I do here. And get everybody on the same page or whatever, so that with terms.
Let's drop that vocab.
Yeah. So the first one on the list is whistleblower.
Oh.
Yeah. Which, of course, Marcus, is just a person who exposes, secretive information or activity within a private or a public organization that is deemed, super illegal, unethical, or just, not correct.
Right.
Next word we got on the this fine list here is a fancy French word called espionage.
Ooh.
Yeah, it sounds hot. And that's the act of obtaining secret or confidential information or divulging of the same without the permission of the holder of the information. So it's like a person who commits espionage is basically, it's like a spy, right?
Right.
So, and that doesn't necessarily mean like the James Bondian spy that we're all led to believe from like Hollywood and movies.
Yeah, not the
stuff,
glamorous.
Right? Nah, yeah, they could possibly have like no training necessarily, you know what I mean? But it's just the act that they participate in makes them that.
The deceit.
Yeah, exactly. Like an assassin or something, you know what I mean? Like they don't have to be, trained at a black site, with the Navy SEALs or whatever to be an assassin or whatever. If you just run up and fucking pull the trigger
play
on
a few
somebody,
Ubisoft games.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Then you're trained you're as highly trained as all the other assassins. Yeah. Next on the list is classified, which is just material that the government body deems to be sensitive information and needs to be like protected. It makes it illegal to possess or disseminate or distribute this information. Top secret, basically.
For British eyes only.
Next on the list is hacker. Marcus, you know what that is, right?
Not according to the U.S. government, I don't.
Yeah, right. Allegedly, computer expert who uses their technical knowledge to achieve a certain goal or overcome like an obstacle in a computerized system. So, whilst the term hacker can refer to any skilled programmer, it's been kind of like associated in popular culture with like security hacking, right? Yeah. So this is someone who utilizes their technical know-how of bugs or, whatever exploits that breaks into computer systems and access data, which could, otherwise be unavailable to them.
Digital lock pickers.
Yeah, exactly. And out of those digital lock pickers, there's two kind of groups. That's the black hat hackers and the white hat hackers, which, basically is just a hacker. So a black hat hacker is just a hacker with, like malicious intent. Mm-hmm. They're going to want to crash systems and rob stuff and, all the bad stuff. As opposed to
real bad hombres.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to, computer hackers that basically like hack ethically, which, people are like, what the hell does that mean? It basically
it is a thing.
Yeah, totally. It basically shows the weaknesses of like telecom or cyber companies in order to help them get like better security. Kind of like that documentary with Tom Hanks called Catch Me If You Can, where basically people, get so good at breaking the law in this one particular industry that very industry asks them to come work for them.
Happens all the time,
happens
actually.
all the time. Yep, totally.
They're the guy who hacked the iPhone and the PS3 got hired at Facebook or Google. He got hired at a big tech company.
Without any charges or anything.
Well, not from them.
Yeah, totally. Well, presumably they just want to drop the charges and be like, he's sound as long as he comes to work for us for a little bit.
Chap, right.
It's fine. Yeah, exactly.
It's the Dr. Manhattan thing. It's like, well, thank God he's on our side.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, exactly. And they'll throw like a whole bunch of money at these people. Yeah. Be like, just forget about all the stuff you did. Just come and show us what you did, and how you did it.
Yeah.
Next on the list is called a virus. Mr. Anderson, you want to know what human beings are? A virus. No, sorry. He's like one of my favorite characters. Type of a computer program that, when executed, basically like replicates itself by modifying other computer programs and inserting its own code.
Like a virus.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Instead of rewriting its like genetic code, it's rewriting its computer code, right?
Yeah.
So when this replication succeeds, the affected area are then said to be like infected with this computer virus, much like a human being. Next on the list is a worm, and that's like a standalone malware program that like replicates itself and then spreads into other computers, like a zombie. So last on the list is metadata, which you're going to hear a lot in this episode. Yeah, exactly. And that's just data that provides information about other data.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the data, basically.
Like, for example, if you took a picture, there's metadata with it of like the camera that was used. There might be like a geolocation of
the
where
time it was taken, all that stuff. That's all metadata. Yeah, and all metadata together can help one kind of decipher like a picture of the situation. So going to a super brief history about some of these things, we're going to talk about real quick the Espionage Act, which is the United States federal law that was passed in 1917, shortly after the U.S.'s entry into World War I. And it's been amended a whole bunch of times throughout the years, and it basically just punishes acts of interference with foreign relations or foreign commerce of the United States, and to punish espionage and to better enforce the criminal laws under the United States, and well, you know, for other purposes too. So this is really big during like I said, World War I. So during like the Red Scare.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been used and abused
over and over and over again, dude. Yeah. So initially with the Red Scare, like most famously with Julius and Ethel Rosenbaum selling freaking nuclear secrets to the Russians, to the Ruskies, and as you said, has been used, reused, and abused throughout history. Next thing we're going to talk about real quick is called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and that was the United States' cybersecurity bill that was enacted in 1986 as an amendment to the existing computer fraud law. Basically, this law just kind of prohibited the access of computers without authorization, right? Like, if you're not allowed to use it, you're breaking the law, basically.
Interesting. That was in 86. Huh?
I know, right? Which is hilarious. Because it took forever, dude. Yeah. Well, people kind of, that's true. Like, it wasn't as, like, well,
I mean, there were certainly computers, but it wasn't like the internet.
It wasn't widely used. No, exactly. But one would suspect that this legislation came, in the wake
out of something bad happening.
Exactly. Of a bunch of people, like, abusing it. So.
Well, it wasn't illegal at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine.
I wasn't breaking the law.
Prior to computer-specific criminal laws, computer crimes were basically just prosecuted as like mail or wire fraud.
Right.
Because that's kind of all was existing as far as the framework back then. But the applying law was often insufficient. Enter a dude named Kevin Poulsen. His name was Kevin Poulsen. And this was a guy who was part of a crew called the Masters of Deception.
Ooh.
Yeah, right?
Sounds cool.
Sounds hot.
Was that like their D&D name?
Basically.
Okay.
And this is basically just a bunch of nerds. And in June of 1990, Poulsen took over all of the telephone lines for Los Angeles radio station KIIS-FM, guaranteeing that he would be the 102nd caller to win a prize valued at thousands of dollars and a couple of Porsches.
Wow.
So him and his buddies were going through basically hacking the phone systems or whatever before like the internet was really big.
I mean, that's pretty freaking cool,
totally,
actually.
Dude. And the only reason why I got caught is because him and his buddies won like 3 Porsches and like $100,000.
Yeah.
No, they just got too
they got too greedy.
They got too greedy, dude. Yeah, exactly.
Too obvious.
Yeah, exactly. So when the Federal Bureau of Investigation started pursuing Poulsen, he went underground as a fugitive and went on the run for 5 years.
Nice.
Right? When he was featured on NBC's Unsolved Mysteries, the show's 1-800 telephone lines mysteriously crashed.
Oh, nice.
Poulsen was arrested in April of 1991 following an investigation. So this was the introduction of people called phreakers.
Oh, okay.
So they're basically phone hackers, right? Before the internet. Well, as the internet's like coming up or whatever.
Yeah.
Again,
in its infancy.
Yes, exactly, or whatever, right? So, I'm going to talk real quick briefly about the surveillance state before the internet, really, or at least like before the heyday of the internet.
Ooh.
The intelligence agencies were basically able to intercept information and data through things called black chambers.
Okay.
And so this is basically under what was known back in the day as the Cipher Bureau. It was initially the United States' like first peacetime crypto-analytical organization, and it was the forerunner of the NSA. The National Security Agency. So it's like the OSS for the CIA, basically, right? Mm-hmm. They later evolved into stations all over the world that acted like a net that gathered and collected data and information from these little information hubs all over the world, right? Different cities, maybe their military bases, whatever.
For sure.
Conflict zones sometimes, right? So now, though, of course, they have, the NSA and the GCHQ and like PRISM, which is those underground transatlantic like internet lines that the NSA freaking monitors.
Yep.
And so that's going to basically be the setting for the introduction of our main characters here. First on that list is a gentleman.
Enter William Binney.
Exactly. Yes. Well done.
Wait. Let me do that in a Rod Serling voice.
Picture, if you will, a man. This man's name is William Binney, worker for the NSA and intriguer of all cryptographic information. Hey, look at that weird mirror.
The scary door.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, William Binney, he's a former intelligence official with the United States National Security Agency. And he retired on October 31st of 2001 after more than 30 years with the agency.
October 31st, 2001.
Yeah, that was, freaking Halloween. And it was just after a super important historical time. He was a critic of his former employer during the George W. Bush administration and was later criticized at the NSA's data collection policies during the Barack Obama administration. And his dissent from the view that Russia interfered with the 2016 election. Kind of on that note, the whole like Seth Rich downloading of DNC information stuff or whatever. So, the initial narrative was that, Russia or, Russian agents or actors or whatever, maybe not necessarily under the direct, official of the Russian state. Hacked into the DNC to release a whole bunch of those emails and stuff between Podesta and Hillary Clinton and a bunch of, stuff that came out.
Right.
And William Binney was one of the guys who was like, no, if you look at the download speed, it'd be pretty much impossible for somebody halfway across the world to download stuff at that speed or whatever. So he thinks that it was downloaded locally from the servers or whatever. So that kind of puts Seth Rich in square in the
hot ass water.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And then it doesn't exactly help that he got mugged in a stairwell at 3:00 in the morning with all of his wallet and his keys and his watch still on him or whatever. So, that doesn't necessarily help.
Yeah.
And just to continue, more specifically, he was critical of the view that Russia had hacked the DNC servers. And so in September of 2002, he, along with J. Kirk Wiebe and a gentleman by the name of Edward Loomis, asked the United States Department of Defense Inspector General to investigate the NSA for allegedly wasting, quote, millions and millions of dollars on Trailblazer, end quote. This is what we talked about before, I think in episode 2?
2, I believe.
Yeah. The Trailblazer was a system that was intended to analyze mass collection of data carried on communication networks such as the internet. And Binney has been one of the inventors of an alternative system, right? This is ThinThread.
Right.
We talked about this before. So ThinThread was shelved when Trailblazer was chosen instead. And Binney has also been publicly criticized of the NSA spying on U.S. citizens, saying it's better than anything that the KGB or the Stasi or the Gestapo or the SS ever had.
Yeah.
Those are tall words. As well as noting Trailblazer's ineffectiveness and unjustified high cost compared to the far less intrusive ThinThread. So basically, if you didn't see, or listen to rather, episode 2.
Shame on you.
Exactly. Fucking turn this off right now and go kill yourself. No.
I wouldn't go that far.
Back it up a little bit? Okay. Basically, for people that weren't listening or whatever, Trailblazer was the program that basically was like a shotgun blast of information dissemination in the sense that it would cast a wide net and scoop up a ton of information without the anonymity of ThinThread. So ThinThread basically did the exact same thing, but it kept it was basically constitutional.
Yeah.
It kept everybody's identity like secret and therefore not like overstepping what was it, like the Fourth Amendment or whichever one. All the amendments.
Yeah, pretty much.
They're all good. They're all good. And
so many good ones.
Number 1, number 2 is a big one. Yeah, exactly, dude. And so he was basically furious that the NSA hadn't uncovered any part of the 9/11 plot. Because they were doing all this vast intelligence gathering. So how could you not like see the blatant signs or whatever, especially when other countries were, ringing the alarm bells months and months beforehand. Again, as we talked about in our September 11th episode.
Right.
It all connects, folks.
Yeah. And, people were trying to tell you about Al-Qaeda and the people who wanted to, do some terrible things and did some terrible things.
Yeah, exactly. And still weren't like really paying attention and basically had connected, but not like analyzed that information. It likely would have been, gathered in a timely matter if they were using kind of like a more focused system like ThinThread.
Whoops-a-doodle.
So after he left the NSA in 2001, Binney was one of several people investigated as part of an inquiry into a 2005 expose by the New York Times on the agency's, kind of warrantless eavesdropping program. Binney was cleared of any wrongdoing, however, after 3 interviews with the FBI agents beginning in March 2007. So he kind of got off, right? So he was the only one of these people that we're going to be talking about today who got off totally scot-free. Well, I shouldn't say scot-free because in early of July 2007, in an unannounced early morning raid, a dozen agents armed with rifles appeared at his house.
Of course.
Right? One of whom entered the bathroom and pointed a gun at Binney, who was in the fucking shower. The FBI confiscated a desktop computer, disks, and personal business records. The NSA revoked his security clearance, forcing him to close his business he ran with a former colleague at a loss of reported of like $300,000 in annual income. So he's off doing his own thing, and they're like,
with his know-how.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh, just kidding. We're actually going to reopen the investigation and kind of mess with you, which they're not actually going to reopen the investigation. They're just going to basically fuck with this guy just because I feel like they just wanted to get
make an example out of him.
Basically, yeah, exactly. So the FBI raided the homes of Wiebe and Loomis, the other 2 gentlemen I told you about earlier, as well as House Intelligence Committee staffer Diane Rourke the same morning. And several months later, the FBI raided the homes of then still active NSA executive Thomas Andrew Drake, who was a friend of Binney, who had also been in contact with the DOD's IG, which is the Inspector General. He was in contact with them anonymously with the confidentiality assured. So he was like, this Drake guy was like promised, like, okay, just tell us what you know, just to make sure there's no like national security interests that we have to worry about. And so he told them everything they needed to know.
We're supposed to protect whistleblowers.
Exactly. And then they rolled over on the guy. So the Assistant Inspector General John Crane is in charge with the whistleblower program, suspecting his superiors provided confidential information to the United States Department of Justice. He challenged them, was eventually forced from his position, and subsequently found himself just basically becoming a public whistleblower. And the punitive treatment of William Binney, Drake, and other whistleblowers is basically what led Edward Snowden to go public with his revelations rather than reporting them through the internal whistleblower program like Binney did. He saw how Binney was getting just like shafted. And so he was like, well, why the fuck would I do that? Like, so enter now an individual by the name of Bradley Chelsea Manning. And the reason why I say Bradley Chelsea Manning is because Bradley went through a transition. Yes, exactly. And is now Chelsea Manning. For the purposes of this next section, I'm going to be calling Chelsea Bradley for the times when I'm talking about the past. Yeah, exactly. All the things she did when she was a he, and then when she transitions, all transition to a she. So she was the one who basically made famous this thing called the Iraqi war logs, or the Iraq war logs, or the Afghan war logs. It's been had a bunch of names, or even the video entitled Collateral Murder. Yeah. These were the big ones that made everybody famous. So born Bradley Edward Manning, she's a former United States Army soldier who was convicted by court-martial in July of 2013 of violation of the Espionage Act and other offenses. After disclosing to WikiLeaks nearly 750,000 classified or unclassified but sensitive military and diplomatic communications. She was imprisoned from 2010 to 2017 when her sentence was commuted. Going through this here, she was assigned in 2009 to the Army unit in Iraq as an intelligence analyst. Manning had access to classified databases and in early 2010 leaked classified information to WikiLeaks.
Somebody call Lemmy Winks. Stop WikiLeaks.
And coincidentally, Manning smuggled all the data and information out of the security checkpoints by labeling a CDR with the information they had written on there, Lady Gaga.
Genius.
So presumably the freaking guard was like, what's all this, that, and the other? Oh, CD? Lady Gaga. Pfft, lame. Okay, you can go ahead and take that. And had no idea that I had 750,000 freaking super classified documents on it.
Just my LimeWire mix,
Yeah, exactly, right. It's now 17.
Now that's what I call Espionage Volume 6.
Yeah. So this material included videos of the July 12th, 2007 Baghdad airstrike. and the 2009 general airstrike in Afghanistan. So this is where U.S. diplomatic cables, and as well as 482,000 Army reports that came in, known as the Iraqi War Logs or Afghanistan War Diaries. So the material was published by WikiLeaks and its media partners between April of 2010 and 2011. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here, but basically the main point of it was a super brutal
abuses of power.
Yeah,
and
big
lots
time.
Of innocent lives being lost.
Yes, perpetrated by U.S. military personnel.
They're just playing fucking Call of Duty out there.
Basically, dude. Yeah. What he said is it reminded him of kids burning ants with magnifying glasses, basically. So what we're talking about basically is a super brutal video, colloquially named Collateral Murder. And that's of 2 American helicopter gunship pilots firing on and killing like a group of like 18 men in Baghdad. 2 of which happen to be Reuters photographers, part of a film crew.
Yep.
And presumably the pilots mistook their gear for weapons, is what they said. A helicopter fired on the van that was helping to evacuate the wounded, basically acting as like an ambulance kind of. Yep. And it's pretty brutal, dude. You see him just lighting it up, and you see him just eager to come on, pick it up. One thing to kind of like be pissed at the soldiers and stuff for, because it's pretty horrific. But at the same time, you have to understand, dude, these are like young kids, dude. These are soldiers who are put into a situation where they're like, hey,
under false pretenses, first of all.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. Why are we even there at the beginning? Well, we're here to give these people freedom. Fuck off. They are trained with this mentality in order to overcome the moral.
Yeah, don't think of them as people. Don't think of them as...
Basically, yeah, exactly. They're the enemy, right? Yeah. Full Metal Jacket, basically, when they're like telling them in like the chants, what makes the grass grow? Blood, blood, blood. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, what is your mission? Kill, kill, kill.
Right.
So, as lame as that is and everything, it's kind of, it's harder to kind of remove yourself of that and not blame the people carrying out the horrible things as much as the people who ordered them to go do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you dig even further into that, you can see the threads all the way from like the things that we talked about in like, say, episode 1 of how to change people's minds, let's say. Break them down, build them up in this new way that you want them.
Exactly.
Complete reprogramming.
Yep. So Manning was charged with 22 offenses, including aiding the enemy, which of course was the most serious charge and could have resulted in a death sentence. She was held at the Marine Corps Brig Quantico in Virginia from July of 2010 to April of 2011 under prevention of serious injury status, which basically is a de facto solitary confinement where they take like everything from your shoelaces, your toothpaste, your anything that could hypothetically be used to like hurt yourself or something like that, right? And she was subjected.
And I'm sure they treated her so well.
Yeah, it was brutal, dude. I obviously wasn't there, but like I remember a long time ago, and it's kind of weird because it's hard to find a lot more information on what happened back in the day. Yeah, scrub. But I remember reading what her average day was like. And I remember just being like disgusted, dude. Just like, really, dude? Like, this isn't a person who committed some like terrorism or something, dude.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily want them to be experiencing that either if they committed terrorism. I don't want them to be like tortured or whatever. But this is basically the things that they were doing to her as far as like keeping her in stress positions and keeping and not letting her have like slippers or clothes or any of that stuff and be like naked or whatever. Well, it's like borderline torture, basically. You know what I mean?
Enhanced interrogation.
There it is. That's the one. That's the euphemism. That's my favorite. So she's going through all this stuff before being transferred to the Joint Regional Correctional Facility at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where she would interact with other detainees. So after she gets there, things kind of settle down and chill out a little bit. She then pleads guilty in February 2013 to 10 of the charges. The trial on the remaining charges began in 2013, and she was convicted of the 17 of the original charges, but was acquitted of aiding the enemy, which is the most important one. So dodge that bullet there, literally. She was sentenced to a 35 years at the maximum security U.S. disciplinary barracks at Fort Leavenworth. And on January 17th, 2017, President Barack Obama commuted Manning's sentence to nearly 7 years of confinement dating from her arrest on the 27th of May in 2010. After release, Manning earned a living through speaking engagements, kind of like traveling the world, telling her story, basically.
Yeah.
From March 8th of 2019 to March 12th of 2020, Manning was jailed for contempt in a detention center in Alexandria, Virginia, and accrued a civil fine of $256,000 for refusing to testify before a grand jury investigating WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange.
The plot thickens.
Right?
And Obama, man, what a nice guy, commuting a sentence.
Yeah, on the way out, the very last thing you did.
Yeah. And, if you would have actually stuck by his campaign promises of protecting the whistleblowers, maybe that would have
been helpful. Yeah, if he would have stuck by his campaign promises to get rid of the Patriot Act 1 and not re-up on Patriot Act 2 and, not sign the NDAA, the National Indefinite Detention of Americans Act, where you can just literally black bag somebody like out of a fucking V for Vendetta movie and hold them indefinitely without any kind of court proceedings. Yeah, those pesky rights things.
Can always get in the way. This document is amazing until it doesn't suit us.
All in the name of terrorism. Yeah, exactly, dude.
All in the name of terrorism. There's a quote from Edward Snowden's book, Permanent Record. I'm going to read for you. The 2 decades since 9/11 have been a litany of American destruction by way of American self-destruction, with the promulgation of secret polices, secret laws, secret courts, and secret wars, whose traumatizing impact, whose very existence, the U.S. government has repeatedly classified, denied, disclaimed, and distorted. After having spent roughly half that period as an employee of the American intelligence community and roughly the other half in exile, I know better than most how often the agencies get things wrong. I know, too, how the collection and analysis of intelligence can inform the production of disinformation and propaganda for use as frequently against America's allies as its enemies, and sometimes against its own citizens. Yet, even given that knowledge, I still struggle to accept the sheer magnitude and speed of the change from an America that sought to define itself by a calculated and performative respect for dissent to a security state whose militarized police demand obedience, drawing their guns, and issuing the order for total submission now heard in every city. Stop resisting. I ran out of breath there at the end, but
powerful shit though, dude.
Yeah, he's a good writer.
Yeah, well, because he's been in it, dude. He's kind of knows it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So enter the next superstar of subversion, and that's Julian Assange.
Oh, Benedict Cumberbatch.
Exactly. Oh. Right. Handsome fella. He's basically an Australian editor, publisher, and activist who founded WikiLeaks back in 2006.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks came to international attention in 2010 when it published a series of leaks that were provided by the U.S. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning. These leaks included the Baghdad airstrike and collateral murder video, the Afghan war logs videos, the Iraqi war logs. All these were released in April of 2010, July of 2010, and October of 2010, as well as something called Cablegate in November of 2010. After the 2010 leaks, the United States government launched a criminal investigation into WikiLeaks. So after these couple of months, the government's like, oh my God, who are these people releasing all these secrets, all these secret shit? Get a handle on it.
Shut that down.
Yeah, exactly.
You're telling all our secrets, man. You're not supposed to.
Lenny,
you're giving away our secret recipes.
So, born Julian Paul Hawkins on July 3rd, 1971, in the city of Townsville, which, of course, is in Queensland, Australia.
That's actually called Townsville?
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I know, right? Hilarious. When I read that, I'm like, that's fantastic, right?
It's under attack by a giant ant.
Yeah, exactly, right? Totally. Oh, Powerpuff Girls, fucking get over here.
By the way, that's Tom Kenny, who does the mayor. He's also SpongeBob and
oh, really?
Heifer. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Heifer from fucking
Rocco.
Rocco, yeah. Oh, Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't know that. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So his mother was named Christine Ann Hawkins, and she was a visual artist. And his father was John Shipton, an anti-war activist and builder. However, the couple separated before their son was born, and Christine then became involved with a musician named Leif Meynell. They also had a son, so he had got himself a little half-brother there. So at this time, he's moving around a lot, and he's going to different schools. And he's super introverted, and, with him through it all, of course, is his computer.
I can relate. My first relationship
was with a computer. The laptop burns my bare thighs, though, when it's sitting on my... Oh, wait, never mind. Finally, the family settles on a place called Magnetic Island to live in a... Yeah, people are just super
They're just drawn to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah! Stupid. That's terrible. So yeah, they live there in sort of like a hippie commune kind of thing with a group that Leif is already super a big part of called the Family.
Ooh.
Yeah. Basically, he's like homeschooled at this point. He's going off every day to explore and build like rafts and wrestle crocs or whatever fucking Aussie kids do.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, totally. He had a pretty cool time growing up, apparently, with the exception of the fact that this family is kind of a well-known Australian cult.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Man, all the great cults just start off so great.
So good, and then they just go off into weird, like, freaking...
and suddenly it's like, okay, all the women come in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Only here.
Only here. Rest of you, over there.
Make sure you take your happy juice now.
Yeah, exactly. Right, totally. Passing out the Kool-Aid. Basically, it was started by a yoga instructor in the 60s, and it gained, as you do. And it gained notoriety in the late 60s and early 70s when it started kind of gaining a lot of local influence due to a bunch of the members being like powerful people in society, like doctors, politicians, cops. And then some of the scandals and allegations of corruption started kind of unfolding. The average people in Australia kind of weren't really having it. It was kind of looked down on as like a negative group. Assange is not like part of this directly. Leif, however, his stepdad is like straight balls deep into this cult.
Oh yeah.
But the mother's like not having it, right? So she eventually like takes the kids and just bails.
I believe this was a plot of the Simpsons episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they find out what beans look like the leader, and then when they're toiling out in the bean fields, basically it comes and scoops them up. Basically, they spend the next several years running up and down the coast, hiding from Leif and this like well-connected cult, right?
Right.
Living in over 30 Australian towns and cities by the time he's reached his mid-teens. When he finally settles down with his mother and half-brother in Melbourne, right? Basically, he starts becoming like John Connor from the Terminator,
right?
From the Terminator franchise, right? He's getting lessons in how to like blend in and how to hide and evade from a straight up like countrywide surveillance network. You know what I mean? So, which, I mean, I don't know about you, that sounds like the beginnings of like a superhero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, learning of how to like do all these things kind of outside the fringes of like normal society, quote unquote. So fast forward to 1987, and at the tender age of 16, he reveals himself to be one of the best hackers in the world, known as Mendax, which of course, as we all know, is Latin for liar. All of us cultured people.
I mean, that's what I thought of.
I knew that already.
Before you even said it.
Exactly. He and 4 others known as Trax, Prime Suspect, Electron, and Phoenix formed a
together known as the X-Men.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Totally. The powers combined are Captain Planet. So they formed this hacker group called the International Subversives.
Okay.
Or the IS, the original IS.
Right. They took our website name.
Yeah, my dick. So Assange may or may not have been involved in something called the Wank. Which, depending on what part of the world you're from,
was this named by like Britain or something?
Yeah, well, it's an acronym, of course. Right. So it's Worms Against Nuclear Killers. So we remember that we said called worms, right? That were like zombie viruses, right? Mm-hmm. So this was a hack from into the NASA computers in 1989.
Oh.
So the Wank worm had a distinct political message attached and was the first major worm to have a political message of its kind, right?
Nice.
And the following message appeared on the infected computer screens, and it said, "Your system has officially been wanked." And then it says, you talk of times of peace for all, and then prepare for war. So the worm coincidentally appeared on the computer network shared between NASA and the U.S. Department of Energy days before the launch of NASA's space shuttle carrying the Galileo spacecraft.
Oh, okay.
And so at the time, there were other protests like outside of the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, a whole bunch of like anti-nuclear groups, anti-war groups and stuff like that or whatever, regarding the use of this plutonium-based power modules in the Galileo.
Oh, okay.
So it would use tiny little nuclear like blasts, basically. They're basically launching a fucking nuclear bomb up into the atmosphere or whatever to use it for propulsion of this new vessel, right?
Okay.
The Galileo.
Okay.
And the protesters contended that if the shuttle like blew up like the Challenger did, the plutonium would spill into the atmosphere and the ozone layer and fucking everything up for everybody, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So the worm propagated through the network kind of pseudo-randomly from one system to another by using an algorithm which converted the victim's machine into a candidate target node, like a zombie, like we were saying, right? Mm-hmm. So fast forward to 93, Assange is given technical advice to the Victoria Police Child Exploitation Unit
Jeez.
that assists in the prosecution of child molesters, basically.
Yeah.
In that same year, he was involved in starting one of the first public internet service providers in Australia called Subarubia.
Nice.
Australians. Subarubia Publica Access Network. And so during this time, he's also monitoring another forum called Crypto, which is just a website that gives advice of computer security advice. And it had like 5,000 subscribers or whatever. So basically during this time, he's like working with the authorities.
Yeah.
He's either helping provide like internet and like security with that internet or helping straight up catch pedophiles.
So he's Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Right. Totally. Like a nerdier version of Batman. So Assange stated that he registered the domain leaks.org in 1999, but, quote, didn't do anything with it. He made his debut when he published a patent granted to the National Security Agency in August of 1999 for voice data harvesting technology. Nice. And he said, quote, this patent should worry people. Everyone's overseas phone calls are or may soon be taped, transcribed, and archived in the bowels of an unaccountable foreign spy agency, end quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back then, this was like revolution.
Absolutely.
You know, this was revelations, right? Yeah, exactly. Right now, it's like, well, duh. So some of the early publications of WikiLeaks, well, starting in 2006, when he established it, he became a member of the organization's advisory board and described himself as like the editor-in-chief, right? So he's like the boss. So from 2007 to 2010, Assange traveled continuously on WikiLeaks business, visiting Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. During this time, WikiLeaks published internet censorship lists, leaks, and classified media from anonymous sources, including revelations about drone strikes in Yemen, corruption across the Arab world, extrajudicial executions by the Kenyan police. 2008, he did one on Tibetan unrest in China. There was the Petrogate oil scandal in Peru. In September 2008, during the 2008 United States presidential election campaigns, the contents of a Yahoo account belonging to Sarah Palin, the running mate of the Republican president nominee John McCain, boo, were posted on the WikiLeaks site after being hacked by members of Anonymous. And of course, we all know Anonymous is that
hacktivist group.
Yeah, that Guy Fawkes mask wearing decentralized international. It's kind of widely known for its various cyber attacks against government organizations, institutions, and agencies, corporations.
They have over 9,000 penises.
Yeah. Most famously, they were the ones who basically published the course of that basically got us into a little bit of a look into Scientology. Super secret doctrine of the Church of Scientology that was kind of reserved for like the top members, you know, that talks about like, you know, Xenu and the invisible ancient alien parasites called Thetans.
Right.
After briefly appearing on a blog, the membership list of a far-right British nationalist party was posted on the WikiLeaks on the 18th of November 2008. And for us Yanks over here on this side of the pond that are unfamiliar with, you know, domestic UK politics, the British Nationalist Party.
Politics, bro?
Yeah, you don't know? Come on. The BN party are basically straight fascists, with like some light sprinkling of Nazism.
Ooh, like, just for good measure.
And I don't mean like American, like, that's racist. I mean like actual, like, holy shit, dude, you guys are straight up fascists.
Right.
Like, so in 2009, WikiLeaks released a report disclosing, what the Iranian government had called a, quote, serious nuclear accident.
Oops.
At the Natanz nuclear facility. And according to media groups that were reporting on the accident, that it may have been the direct result of a cyber attack at Iran's nuclear program carried out with the Strutnex computer worm, which was we're talking about before, was like a cyber weapon built jointly by the United States and Israel.
Ooh. Oops.
Ah-ya.
So you got caught on that one. Got your fingers in the cookie jar.
Yeah. So basically, like we're saying at this point, the infamous Iraq and Afghani war logs are now released after all of this stuff that he's happened. So he's already made a name for himself, and this is when the bombs drop, basically.
Yeah.
So this is what makes WikiLeaks a household name. So this guy is fucking like
making powerful enemies.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Pissing off a ton of people, right?
Who's this guy sitting there like exposing our constitutional violations?
Yeah, exactly.
Crimes
right?
against humanity.
Yeah, what a dick. Get him out of here. So they're getting super famous, and WikiLeaks publishes a $250,000 U.S. diplomatic cables, known as Cablegate. And it's my favorite of the gates, by the way. So in November of 2010, WikiLeaks initially worked with established Western media organizations and later with smaller regional media organizations, while also publishing the cables upon which their reporting was based. And so basically the files show that the United States was conducting like espionage.
Less than diplomatic actions.
Yeah, a little bit, dude. So they're high level doing illegal spying on the United Nations and other world leaders. Basically everybody, dude. Literally everybody. Like Germany, Turkey, name a country, they were checking it out, right?
Yeah.
Hell of illegally. Showed that the United States espionage was against the United Nations and other world leaders, revealed tensions between the U.S. and its allies, and exposed corruption in countries throughout the world as documented by the U.S. diplomats. So, like I said, U.S. spying on everybody. And this is what really put WikiLeaks on the government's radar.
really got to get this
Now
guy.
we're really pissed because they're pointing out.
Pissed.
Yeah, exactly. You're pointing out all our fucking inconsistencies. Just kind of as like a side note, I thought that Assange and WikiLeaks released a whole bunch of information in this regard, kind of without redacting any of the information. And I figured that was a lot of what people were like upset about. Saying like, well, there's people's name in here and this and that.
Yeah.
And so that's true, come to find out. But also what I just realized or whatever after doing some of this research is that actually Assange contacted like people at The Guardian, the news, the news outlet, and were like, hey, can you get in touch with the Pentagon?
Yeah.
So that we can kind of disseminate some of this information and tell us, hey, what can be released and what can't be.
Not spoil a bunch of national security secrets.
Yeah, so The Guardian basically hit them up and saying like, hey, what do you want us to redact from this? Because we're going live in like 12 hours or whatever, you know what I mean? Basically, the Pentagon told them to go fuck themselves.
Them off, yeah.
Yes, dude. So they're like, well, we're going to release all this information then. And so when they did, and there was like names and dates and stuff or whatever, and the intelligence community were like
now
throwing up their hands going, whoa, you put these guys in danger.
Yeah.
You blah, 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 which is
it was
true.
like a burn notice on a bunch of people.
Yes, dude, totally. Which in de facto definition, yes, is true.
Great, yeah.
No, of course. But it's like, bro, you guys are all doing all this shit illegally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the risk.
Right.
Is it not?
Yeah.
So I have little sympathy for all this illegal shit, which a lot of people would be like, well, they got to keep us safe. It's like, okay, well, this is part of the risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
When they get caught.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And so when they get caught, you fucking die, don't you?
And you got to be diligent with anything that comes to WikiLeaks because, like we said, it pissed off a lot of people. So, I mean, granted,
a lot of people had an axe to grind after that.
Right. I don't know if you're going to get into like the whole assassination of Julian Assange, basically. But,
not really. We're just going to talk about it at the very end of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the character assassination.
The character assassination, right. Yes. And probably attempted assassination.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, many a times. Which is hilarious because, like, when this first happened, people were like, he could leave the embassy at any time. He's not running for anything.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? And then he ends up fucking dead on a park bench somewhere or whatever of some overdose or whatever, evident overdose.
Some crackhead just came and stabbed him.
Came and robbed him, shot him twice in the back of the head. Worst case of suicide I ever saw. So in November of 2010, Sweden issued an international arrest warrant for Julian Assange over allegations of sexual assault. Assange denied the allegations and said that they were a pretext for him to be extradited from Sweden to the United States because of his role in publishing all these like super secret American documents.
What are you doing, Sweden? What are you doing?
Because at this point he's like going to the press conferences and going to all these conventions talking about all this corruption and releasing all this information and stuff, trying to get people on board to be like, hey, if you ever need to like release some shit, this is where you do it.
Yeah.
And this is where he picks up the charge, right? This sexual assault charge.
He caught a case.
Caught a case. 2 cases. As always, context is crucial to any charge, or to any narrative, really. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which makes conspiracy theorists think, that the charges are totally contrived to silence him, right?
Right. Its whole thing is messy, man.
It's big time messy. I highly recommend people to kind of go and check it out because you can basically just paint a person with a sexual allegation brush and it'll destroy their reputation.
Yeah.
If you look into the depths of everything in the sexual assault allegation, it's pretty bunk. It's pretty spurious. It's not rape or sexual assault or whatever. It's that in one instance, a condom broke and that he wouldn't take an HIV test. And then in another instance, he was suspected of like taking the condom off while you're engaged in certain activity so that they think the condom's on and they come to find out, oh, what the fuck, dude?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So not exactly cool, but definitely not like rape or whatever. And then, so woman A basically contacts woman B, the other person who was, and says like, hey, this thing happened. I wanted to take this HIV test because I guess in Sweden they're like super scared about that type of shit for whatever reason. I guess it's like a cultural thing.
Because they have all the hot women there, dude.
It says shoot all that porn up there. That's why, right, dude? Freaking, they get together and to tell each other's like stories. They drive across Stockholm, passing many police stations along the way, meets up with a friend of woman A, who is also a police officer. He, instead of writing down all of this stuff or recording it in any way, shape, or form, he just takes what he says she told him to his superiors, and they file it's not even a charge. It's like a inquiry to questioning. Mm-hmm. It's slightly different. It's not technically like a charge, right? The only weirdness is that not only did the lady say that she kept I think woman B said that she kept the condom for like a month afterward, and then it was, which is weird.
That's normal.
That's super normal. The condom was also tested and had no DNA on it. So I don't know what that means. That means that it's just a condom. It was a condom that was unused. Right. So I don't know why she's using this as like evidence. I mean,
also, you would think a condom would be laced with DNA.
Laced with DNA, inside and out. Like, right, dude? Like, there's no way you're not getting DNA off of that thing. Also, when the report came out that the police officer filed, the woman that apparently gave that report, and now remember, there was no recording of it or whatever. It was just the cops' like hearsay. She then said, "Hey, I'd never said that." So it's really bizarre. It's super bizarre. Like I'm not trying to downplay anybody's fucking experience or anything, but it's definitely you gotta look at it really deeply.
I would
kind
think
of
that. I mean, put my conspiracy hat on here
for sure.
I would think that the American
it's the
intelligence.
tinfoil one on your left. It's
that one. Okay, not the aluminum.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You don't want that one. That was no good.
This one's zinc. Put my hat on here. You would think that the American intelligence community could come up with a better way to frame this
dude.
guy.
If you wanted to like destroy this guy's career or destroy his like, I know. I thought of the exact same thing, and I don't know. I don't know what that's all about because I feel like.
Assuming that's the source, it could be a million sources.
No, of course.
Of course.
Well, I'm assuming that there is a little bit of there, but they just blew it up to like ridiculous proportions and got the women to be like, "Hey, say this, say that." And they're like, "Okay," and then later they're like, "Well, maybe I shouldn't have said that because it's not true." Like, you know what I mean? So who knows? But it's definitely one of those things that like, hey, all of a sudden there's this charge, and it's a weird charge that things that certain don't make a whole lot of sense, but it doesn't mean that that's wrong because I mean it doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% wrong. Sure. But you know what I mean? But it's definitely one of those things that raises like an insane amount of red flags.
Yeah.
So because of this, Assange surrendered to the UK police on the 7th of December of 2010, but was released on bail within 10 days, having been unsuccessful in his challenge to the extradition proceedings. He then breached bail in June of 2012 and took refuge in the embassy of Ecuador in London.
There you go.
And he was granted asylum by Ecuador due to the fears of political persecution and extradition to the United States. Assange would remain in that embassy for like 7 years.
Yep.
Straight up 7 years. So he was waiting until 2020 to overexceed the stipulations of statutes limitations. Exactly. So after Assange's asylum was revoked, the ambassador of Ecuador to the United Kingdom invited the Metropolitan Police into the embassy on the 11th of April 2019. Following this invitation, Assange was arrested and taken to the central London police stations. And that was a super famous picture of him, super unkept looking, being pulled from the embassy or whatever, holding a single book in his hand. And that was that Gore Vidal's The History of the National Security State.
TMZ obtained this exclusive image.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm Ryan Seacrest. So he was charged with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion, which is, I mean, just
they made that charge up for him.
That's a made-up word. It was a relatively minor crime that carries a maximum 5-year sentence if found guilty. So it's a bullshit crime, dude. Charges stem from the allegations that Assange attempted and failed to crack the password hash so that Chelsea Manning could use a different username and to download classified documents and avoid detection. So this was back during that whole release of the Collateral Murder video.
So let me make sure I get this straight. Those are British charges or American charges?
These are American charges, unfortunately. That's why they're extraditing him.
Okay.
This information has been known since 2011 and was a component of the Manning trial. The indictment did not reveal any new information about Assange. Basically, this dude was posted up for 7 years, trying to get everything like figured out, whatever, and to try to dodge all these accusations and stuff until finally at the very end, the Trump administration came in there and scooped him up. Now, a lot of Trump's like supporters or whatever we want to say were not super psyched that he did that. Because if people remember back in 2016, he praised WikiLeaks for releasing all that dirt from the DNC or whatever, all that fucked up shit that was in there.
Yeah.
And they're great, they're fantastic. I don't know why people don't like them. He was singing the praises of them, as were Democrats before Assange released all that DNC shit, dude. They thought he was like, the bee's knees. Yeah, totally. And then he released all this DNC shit, and they were like, dude, you're a piece of shit. You're a Russian spy is what it is. Yeah. Which has been like used for everybody that they don't like or whatever, whether it's like Tulsi Gabbard or whoever, and like, you're a Russian doll. You're like, okay, that's nonsense, but...
Was it 1985?
Yeah, exactly, right? The 1980s call, they want their fucking bad guys back. Yeah, exactly. He's still up in jail right now, dude, waiting for the case to go forward. I don't know where we're at there right now, but I know that a lot of people want him out. Yeah. For a lot of reasons.
Hopefully he doesn't get Epsteined.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. Freaking Julian Assange didn't kill himself.
Roses are red, violets are blue.
Julian Assange didn't kill himself, and how are you? I got nothing. So last on the list of the subversive superstars is, of course, the Snowman, Edward Snowden. So this gentleman basically copied and leaked highly classified information from the National Security Agency back in 2013 when he was a CIA employee and subcontractor. There's
a good quote from his book that I feel like should have been maybe like the back cover or something. Mm-hmm. Just a great little short story here I'm going to read. So basically, Ed and his classmates are having some issues. He tries to complain to the immediate superior who doesn't really solve any problems. So he goes above him to his boss.
As you do.
Yeah. And then they fix the issues, but then he later gets called into the superior's office.
For going over the guy's head.
Right. Even
though he didn't go over his head, he went to him to help fix the problem. And that guy was giving him the runaround.
We'll catch up in the end of that meeting here. Raising a forefinger automatically but politely, I pointed out that before I emailed above my station, I tried the chain of command and been failed by it, which is precisely the last thing I should have been explaining to the chain of command itself, personified just across the desk from me. The head of the school just stared at his shoes and occasionally glanced out the window. Listen, his boss said, Ed, I'm not here to file a hurt feelings report. Relax. I recognize you're a talented guy, and we've gone around and talked to all your instructors, and they say you're talented and sharp. Even volunteered for the war zone. That's something we appreciate. We want you here, but we need to know that we can count on you. You've got to understand there's a system here. Sometimes we've all got to put up with things we don't like because the mission comes first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Words to live and die by.
And we can't complete that mission if every guy on the team is second-guessing. He took a pause, swallowed, and said, Nowhere is this more true than in the desert. A lot of things happen out in the desert, and I'm not sure
there's a lot of holes out in the desert.
I'm not sure we're at a stage yet where I'm comfortable that I'll know you know how to handle them. This was their gotcha, their retaliation, and though it was entirely self-defeating, the head of the school is now smiling at the parking lot. No one besides me, and I mean no one, had put down SRD or any other active combat situation for that matter as their first or second or even third choice on their dream sheets. Everyone else prioritized all the stops in the European Champagne circuit, and all the neat, sweet vacation station burgs with windmills and bicycles where you rarely hear explosions. Almost perversely, they now gave me one of these assignments. They gave me Geneva. They punished me by giving me what I'd never asked for, but what everyone else wanted. As if he were reading my mind, the director said, This isn't a punishment, Ed. It's an opportunity, really. Someone with your level of expertise would be wasted in the war zone. You need a bigger station that pilots the newest projects to really keep you busy and stretch your skills. Everyone in class who had been congratulating me would later turn jealous and think that I'd been bought off with a luxury position to avoid further complaints. My reaction in the moment was the opposite. I thought that the head of the school must have had an informant in the class who told him exactly the type of station I hoped to avoid. The director got up with a smile, which signaled that the meeting was over. All right, I think we got a plan. Before I leave, I just want to make sure we're clear here. I'm not going to have another Ed Snowden moment, am I?
What a piece of shit.
But I love that. Another Ed Snowden moment, and that's how he ends the chapter.
An Ed Snowden moment. Oh, I'm sorry. You mean like a crisis of conscience and like the desire to have efficient intelligence?
And actually, in a few years, you'll come to know my name. Yeah, I'm sure. And you'll have a very big Ed Snowden moment on your hands.
Fucking asshole. So his disclosure revealed numerous global surveillance programs, many run by the NSA, as well as the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, which basically I think we talked about also in episode 2. Which is
the Eyes of Sauron.
Yeah, exactly. Which are Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the U.S. So, with the cooperation of telecom companies and the European governments, and prompt a cultural discussion about national security and individual privacy. So he's basically the guy that kind of... Now, again, this is before people put tape on their fucking laptop computers, right?
Right.
And when politicians like failed presidential candidate Marco Rubio sat on the floor of the House of the Senate saying to the committee that, quote, next time that someone says that the NSA is listening to your calls or reading your emails, they're lying. It's just not true. Which, I mean, technically is true, you piece of shit. But they're recording it.
Actively listening.
Yeah, exactly. They're not listening.
Yeah. That's
just a dumb argument. Like, I've had this discussion with my friends when I talk about this kind of thing where, the typical thing happens where they oversimplify or strawman the argument,
yeah, of course.
Regarding conspiracies and go, oh yeah, like so there's a big room with like thousands of people manning phones and listening, just writing stuff down. Like, no, dumbass. Like it's basically a giant like computer program that's like slurping up fucking information, filing it and composing like a shadow profile on you.
Yeah, and then creating a database with which they could
they can tap into whatever. Yeah, anytime your name comes across their desk, they're like, oh, what do we know about this guy? Oh, all these things.
Yeah, they find the metadata, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
I have a quote in here. I can maybe throw in. It's a shorter one, I promise. From Snowden's book, says technology doesn't have an Hippocratic oath, which is the oath that doctors take.
Right, the oath to do no harm. Yeah. Exactly.
So many decisions that have been made by technologists in academia, industry, the military, and government since at least the Industrial Revolution have been made on the basis of can we, not should we. And the intention driving a technology's invention rarely, if ever, limits its application and use.
Totally. Snowden's like whole family was in the military, or at least like worked for the government at some point, right? Like his sister was a lawyer that worked for the government, and was like his father was like on the Coast Guard. His grandpa worked for the Pentagon and survived the 9/11 attacks. So it's at this point that there's some contention between the two stories as far as the government's official accounts and Snowden's official accounts.
Right, of course.
He said that in 2003 he enrolled in the Army Special Forces training, but washed out when he broke both of his legs in a training exercise.
Right.
The U.S. Army says that he enlisted in the Army as a reserve Special Forces recruit, and in May of 2004, but he was discharged in September after having completed no programs. So that's a huge discrepancy of like, where he goes like, no, I went in, I did all these things. And they're like, no, he didn't do any of these things. Mm-hmm. So that kind of reminds me of what we've seen before with, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Oklahoma City bombing and Timothy McVeigh.
Okay.
Basically, he washed out of Special Forces training after being disillusioned, quote unquote, by the government, even though he was hell of gung-ho all the way up until he was born, basically, and had been like, this was like the one thing he wanted to do forever. Yeah. And then he joined the Special Forces, and then all of a sudden he washed out and writing his sister like weird letters or whatever, saying about like, no, I'm still like pro this and that and a bit. So it's just really weird. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I would think that the military of all places would probably be the easiest place to scrub records. A place that's so about the chain of command.
Yeah, exactly. And especially
orders following
if you wanted
orders.
To hide somebody's like past or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Later in 2005, he went to work for as a security guard for the NSA at the University of Maryland. He says there that there is a top secret code breaking facility there, and he had high security clearance as a security officer monitoring the network. Now, again, the NSA says that that's all bullshit. He says that this facility is not classified.
We don't do that.
Exactly, and that it's just a training facility. Yeah. And he was just like a nobody security guard, basically.
Yeah, and in the book he talks about how that system is like backed up on tape, and there's like one guy who knows how to like operate this old analog system.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah.
Jesus. American tax dollars hard at work. So next year in 2006, he goes to a job fair, apparently, where he gets recruited by the CIA.
Yep.
As you do. As a security analyst, despite having like no experience. So, in my opinion, he just fucking nailed the interview, basically. Like,
they were thirsty for people, too.
Exactly, dude. They really wanted anybody, some new blood.
Yeah.
He rose up the ranks so fast that he got stationed in Switzerland, where he apparently had his first experiences of, like, shady shenanigans going on. So that's where he officially quits the CIA. Later in November of 2010, Snowden was hired by Dell Computer as a NSA contractor.
Right.
And he worked near an Air Force base in Tokyo, Japan. Yeah. This is where he learns Japanese. So throughout his experience, he's learned like German and Japanese.
A little bit of everything.
Russian, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
2011, Dell sends him back to Maryland, to his home town or whatever. The next year in 2012, they send him to Hawaii, making a cush $200,000 a year job spying on people for like private industries and stuff, like working for the government, basically.
Right. Maybe I should have thrown this in earlier, but his ID, if anybody looked into him, he worked for Dell, right?
Right.
Because he was a contractor, but that's kind of how the whole thing works. Is they just look
at the initial part and like, oh, you're just like a computer guy or whatever. But if you look deeper, you're like, holy shit, and you're like a spy, dog. Like,
right. Part of the smear campaign, I guess you could call it, against him was like, oh, he's just a fucking computer guy working at Dell.
Remember that guy? Fucking dude, you're getting a Dell. Like, yeah, exactly. What anybody does to kind of try to like smear people, to try to maybe like, don't take this seriously. It's very not serious.
Yeah.
There in Hawaii, this is basically where he also witnesses a large additional amount of chicanery involving the intel agents, like snooping on private citizens without warrants, like straight up girlfriends and ex-girlfriends, and like, he realized that there was like zero fucking oversight. This is when he's approached by the NSA's elite access hacker team called Tailored Access Operations. They're a military operation that runs ops basically against like North Korea and China, doing like cybersecurity, cyber hacks and stuff like that, cyber warfare against America's enemies. So this is when he's considered taking a pay cut to get better access to data. So he doesn't go to the NSA directly, where he could have we have a whole bunch of oversight. Instead, he goes to one of the contracted like private companies where the pay is amazing. He gets access to an insane amount of data, and he has basically fucking zero oversight. Mm-hmm. So, and this is what I wasn't kind of aware of. So in 2013, he goes to work for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton.
Okay.
So I didn't realize before I did a lot of this information that the intelligence agencies don't even do a lot of the work. It's subcontracted out, dude. Yeah. So
that's the way of the world, man.
That's so crazy, dude. Like that most of it is done out of house. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which to me is like a major fucking security concerns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, like zero oversight. Like,
yeah. And that is true, but I mean, these people they get vetted, and they have security clearance and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody's working for money,
no, I completely agree with you.
You know what I mean? Rather than like the patriotic duty and also money, like you know what I mean? Like it's just weird to me. It's bizarre. You'd think it'd do all that shit in house.
Dude, maybe I shouldn't even say this. I might cut this out, but I was interviewed by like an officer because I had somebody who was trying to get like a top secret clearance and stuff. Not top secret.
Oh, yeah.
Security clearance.
Yeah, my brother did the same thing for the Marines.
Yeah, and they just ask you like the craziest fucking questions.
I was like, oh, that motherfucker cannot keep a secret, dude. That fool would always tell me about all the girls.
He's got friends in Russia.
Yeah.
he's talking about making bombs.
North Korea.
Yeah.
All the Koreas. West Korea. Yeah, exactly. Read my mind. So after working there for only a few months, Snowden says that he gradually became disillusioned with the program with which he was involved, and he tried to raise his ethical concerns through the internal chains of command, but they were ignored. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier with his professor.
Right. Said
his breaking point came in March of 2013 when he watched the director of the NSA, James Clapper. Yes, that guy. Anyone fucking following the Spygate scandal of 2019, 2020. Basically, he watched that piece of shit lie to Congress about the capabilities and the objectives of the intelligence community. Mm-hmm. So basically, a lot of the people didn't even think that that the intelligence community would do that, let alone even have the fucking capability, dude, that they could do that, dude. On May 20th, 2013, Snowden fled to Hong Kong after leaving his job at the NSA facility in Hawaii, saying that he left work for like epilepsy treatment.
Right.
And so he's like playing hooky in early June, and he revealed thousands of classified NSA documents to journalist Glenn Greenwald and others. Snowden came to international attention after these stories based on the material appeared in The Guardian, The Washington Post, and The New York Times, so blowing him up big time. Among other things, it was revealed that the NSA is tapping into the 9 biggest Silicon Valley tech and data firms, including Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, AOL, Yahoo, fucking YouTube,
just giving
Skype.
It away.
Yeah, dude. And that's really where all of the intelligence and surveillance, all the attention is happening, dude, is on all these platforms, basically.
Yeah.
So at this point, WikiLeaks is helped by buying tickets in his name to confuse authorities to exfil him out of Hong Kong. So a bunch of people in WikiLeaks, not Assange directly, but a bunch of people in WikiLeaks are like buying him a bunch of fucking tickets all at once. Kind of like that hyper trading thing we were just talking about.
To throw him off.
Yeah, exactly. To throw the authorities off, to be like, shit, which one is the one he's getting on the plane with, right? So on
Until I know who the real Mr. Krabs is.
No one's going anywhere. So on June 21st of 2013, the United States Department of Justice unsealed charges against Snowden on 2 counts of violations of Espionage Act of that one in 1917. And as well as the theft of government property, following which the Department of State revoked his passport. So,
yep, and that's what screwed him.
Pretty hilarious. So, when they're doing the extradition, so the part where they release the extradition papers or whatever to Hong Kong, the papers read Edward James Snowden. So his name is Edward Joseph Snowden. So that was basically like alleged to be the excuse of why the Chinese security officials in Hong Kong in the airport let him fucking through, dude. So there's this documentary called Terminal F, and I'll try to leave a link to it down below. Basically, and this documentary features a part where the airport security lady is like, hey, look, dude, here in Hong Kong, we're very particular about data and stuff like that, dude. And when the government, when the United States said like, hey, we're looking for a Edward James Snowden, we stopped anybody with that name for entering the plane. Now, because his name was Edward Joseph Snowden, we let him on the fucking plane, dude. That's not the same person.
I mean, I'd imagine a lot of people in Hong Kong would be sympathetic to people feeling like they're being bullied by some big...
No kidding, dude. And not to mention the, immense, sidestepping of, government bullshit that lady did for her country or whatever. Of, we just let him go to Russia. Let them deal with that bullshit. Right. You know what I mean? I'm gonna fucking... I don't want my country to have to deal with this fucking quagmire of, of a legal fucking, mess.
We have a saying around here. Let Michigan handle it.
Yeah, exactly. Let Russia handle it. So 2 days later, he flew into Moscow's international airport, where Russian authorities observed that his passport had been canceled mid-flight.
Yeah.
So he's flying over here from Hong Kong, or flying over to Russia rather, from Hong Kong. In mid-flight, he gets his freaking passport revoked or whatever. So that basically restricted him to the airport terminal for over 40 days.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to go to Russia. That was not his final destination.
Where was he trying to go?
I believe Ecuador. Yeah.
Tip of the hat to Ecuador, man. Yeah. So Russia later granted Snowden the right to asylum with an initial visa for residence for 1 year, and then repeated the extension as was permitted to him to stay until at least 2020.
Because Russia, what better way to get back at all those fucking Americans?
Right? Be like, it's fine. You can stay if you want. No problem. We're going to let him stay. And then America's like, hey, we'd like you to extradite him back over here. We'll see what happens. No, we want you to extradite him.
No comrade.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking family guy.
Mr. Snowden man. No.
Mr. Snowden man is not home. Look, just give him these extradition papers. No.
Slowly closing the door.
Yeah, exactly. No. Goodbye. That's Vidania. So just to finish up, the exact size and scope of Snowden's disclosure is still unknown. The unclassified portion of the September 15th, 2016 United States House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence report.
Man, that's a mouthful.
Right. Estimated that the number of downloaded documents at 1.5 million, dude. So that's walking around fucking amount.
And maybe I should point out that the reason that Snowden had access to all these things is because of what his job was. He was a systems admin, so he was the guy that actually got into the servers to maintain them and everything like that.
Exactly.
And he could see how crappy the security was in some places, and
said something, and people were like, "Shut up!
Right?
Shut up! Collect that money and shut your mouth."
Yeah, and in part of the book, he goes over how he also feels very guilty because not only did he go join the war effort for the wrong reasons and everything,
right.
He helped create some of the tools of our,
of our oppression.
Yeah,
indeed,
like the backing up systems and everything.
Yeah. So he was kind of upset about a lot of that stuff and kind of wanted to make it right.
Yeah.
So Glenn Greenwald stated that Snowden's disclosure contains sensitive NSA blueprints detailing how the NSA operates and which would allow someone who read them to evade NSA surveillance. And, that wouldn't necessarily be a terrible thing, now would it? So that kind of wraps it up for the subversive superstars here, whistleblowers extraordinaire.
Mm-hmm.
What's the final thing to take from this, Marcus, other than be thankful for the freedoms that we have and maybe try not to criticize the people who try to show us that things aren't exactly as peachy clean as we think they are?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, they're just buying all the bullshit that people are feeding them with. Like, they're traitors to the country.
Yeah, that's what pisses me off a whole bunch, dude. And you're just like, or maybe, or second thought, hold on, or they're not traitors. And matter of fact, these are ultra patriots.
Yeah, exactly. They're more patriotic than the fucking people that are vilifying them.
Exactly, dude. And that's why I ride America so hard. Giggity. And, a lot of people...
That's the way she likes it.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Hair pulled, slapped a little bit, fucking just a little bit of choking. Not too much. Pull it back. Turning blue. Turning red, white, and blue. Anybody that listens to this podcast or just listens to me talk in general could probably, without knowing me, they would probably take from it
hate America.
Basically,
you hate America.
Just say it, Drew. You fucking hate America.
Commie.
Liberals hate America. Those fucking conservative talk show hosts that have turned out to be true. Not liberals, but leftists. No, I ride America pretty hard, dude, because, and again, if you just kind of listen to it a little bit and don't really know exactly who I am and just hear this for a second, you might kind of think that I kind of subscribe to the Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn view of the world, of America in general, rather the blame America first crowd.
Right.
Which, don't get me wrong, of course I know about all those fucking guys, about all the terrible things that America has done and stuff, and I don't like that, and I want to bring that shit to attention so we can atone for it.
Exactly. We need to be better.
Yes.
America should be better.
Yes. Let's not hide from all the shitty things that we did. Let's be real. Hey,
we're not...
say what you want about fucking Trump when he was saying about fucking Putin, when they're like, Putin did all these fucking terrible, awful things, and he's like, well, I mean, America's not exactly any fucking, we've done terrible things too. We're not exactly perfect. You know what I mean? And everyone's like, give him hella shit for it. I'm like, motherfucker's right, dude. Like, we have done some fucking terrible shit in this country, dude. Me saying all that things doesn't mean that I don't love this country or whatever. I love this country so much that I want to make sure that the terrible things that we did in the past are brought up.
You know what it is America's just not living up to her fucking potential.
And that's what it is, dude. Fucking, we set aside a whole bunch of things that we're like, you know what? It'd be cool to aspire to those things, but not yet.
But only some of you, and not really.
And not really yet. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're definitely getting better.
And then we're going to take those away from you.
Periodically. Yeah, exactly.
When it suits our needs.
But you'll like it because we're just going to jam you full of fucking entertainment. And by then, you're not going to care about any of these things like rights. You're just going to want to know what's on the fucking football team.
Which Kardashian? Which other Kardashian?
Yeah, exactly. Which Kardashian has the biggest ass? It's Kim, by the way. Duh, obviously. Like our police, I hold America to a higher standard, dude. Yeah. And I love this fucking country. And I think it's the best fucking country, hands down, that's ever existed. We need to fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
We need to hold a lot of things and people and historical events accountable.
Yeah.
And never forget those things because otherwise, lest we forget them. But yeah, I think Snowden and Assange, Manning, Binney, all these people that we talked about today, they're patriots, dude. They're real patriots. These are the people that the founding fathers were writing about when they said, I pledge my fortune, life, and my sacred honor, or something like that, in the pursuit of freedom and the point of why the country's, you know what I'm saying?
99-cent taco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And crunchy chalupas for all. These are the people that really gave up a lot, dude, to give us, I don't want to say the life that we have, but at least to show us what we should have.
Yeah, what we should strive to be.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than freaking biting these people's heads off or whatever, maybe they should be elevated to a higher status.
For sure. It's the same thing that people do with themselves. It's like if somebody shows you your flaws and your things that you need to work on, you just get angry at them.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck you. I'm great.
Yeah, who are you to judge me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And yet, when you look in the mirror, you're like,
that motherfucker's right.
He's right, dude.
Yeah, and they just don't want to, admit it and work on it.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, too. I think people don't want to face it because they think that facing it means that, the game is over. We lost, we failed, or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's not it at all, dude. Life keeps going, dude. Just because we failed or didn't live up to this one or many of America's, finding ideologies and everything like that doesn't mean that the game is over, dog. Just because we failed once or twice or a couple of times or whatever you want to say doesn't mean the game is over. Rather than being demonized, they should be held up as examples of what people should do because it's really hard to probably do the things that these people did. These fucking people lost everything, dude. They lost everything. Their relationships with people that they love, their jobs, their freedom. Truth. Yeah, dude.
They gave up 99-cent tacos.
Yeah, Eternal vigilance is the price we must pay to continue this big experiment of human freedom called the United States. See you next week. I don't know. It's amazing what you find face to face.
Do you enjoy the show and want to help it grow? Don't hesitate. Like, share, and donate.
Today we're going to be talking about whistleblowers.
Oh, okay.
And the superstars of the subversive internet network. Yeah. What are you, Cardi B?
Yes. I'm trying to relate here. Trying to get the
with the young kids,
get the demographics going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's you kids with your fucking your HTTPs and your fucking computer terminals and your internet?
The hip one and the hop one and the bip one and the bop one.
Turn into Bill Cosby.
You see, the kids, they listen to the rap music. They don't know about the jazz. We're not even drunk. Oh, my groin.
There it is. God.
It's over. Give that man the award.
That's right. Man hit in the groin by
Hans
football.
Moleman Productions presents Man Getting Hit by Football.
Give him the $1 million. Right? He's like, that's not what we're doing here. I mean, Barney's video had heart.
Right.
But football in the groin had a fucking football in the groin. Right? He's just like, what do you want me to do, bro? Like,